Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lo, and welcome back to another YouTube video. I'm in a little bit of a different location right now. I'm house sitting for my parents, so my next couple of videos are going to be some different backgrounds than you're used to. Today I am back with another America versus the Netherlands video. So I did a video about this like 9 months ago, and it kind of popped off, at least for me. So I thought I'd make another series or another installment of this series. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, I am Dutch. I was born here, and I live currently in Amsterdam. I have for the last 4 years, but I also grew up partly in the United States from when I was 10 till 16 on the East Coast. So yeah, I love like looking at the differences between the two. I've definitely experienced both cultures. I consider myself a little bit of both, so I'm excited to get into this with you guys. So today's episode is all about the differences in college between America and the Netherlands. So the first thing I want to talk about is the differences in the types of universities there are. So I'll start with America. So in America, you kind of have two different types. You have colleges and you have community colleges. So community colleges are usually around 2 years and you get an associate's degree, and college is a 4-year education where you end up with a bachelor's degree. This is the most common thing that I think people do if they go to college. It's a lot broader. You start out usually in your first year or two with doing a bunch of different classes. You have a bunch of requirements that you have to fill. So even if you go in as an business major, you will probably still have to take a science class and an English class to fill your credits. You can also enter as an undecided major and just take a bunch of classes to figure out what you want to do. So that's definitely a lot different than the Netherlands, which I'll get into in a second. And usually I think like around your second year, from what I've heard from friends, is when you have to like definitely pick your major and start taking more classes to fill up the credits for that major. So you also have universities in the US. These aren't really different than colleges. You still go to for 4 years and you end up with a bachelor's degree, but usually they have a little bit of a higher ranking. You kind of probably have heard of like the Ivy Leagues, like Harvard University, Yale University. Ivy League actually didn't really come out of a ranking thing. It came out of a sports league, what I learned on my college tours. But yeah, so college and university are the same. People in the US will probably call it college and not uni. In the Netherlands, it's definitely different. So we have something called the University of Applied Sciences, or a hogeschool in Dutch. And this is also a 4-year course. You end with a bachelor's degree. Kind of the same thing as college in the US. But after you finish this, you can't go on to get a master's degree. You can, but you would have to take a pre-master's degree first. You can't go straight into a master's degree. And so the Netherlands switches for high schools into different levels. So if you go to the HAVO level of high school, you can go to the HBO, or the University of Applied Sciences. And in the Netherlands, you go to college straight for your major. So if you want to be a psychologist, you apply for psychology and you only take psychology courses. A hogeschool or University of Applied Sciences usually takes 4 years. And then you have another option. You have the universities in the Netherlands. This is also, you get a bachelor, you can get a master's straight away afterwards, and it's a lot more common to get a master's afterwards, and you can even go on to get a PhD. So for this, you have to do the VWO niveau of high school in the Netherlands. And again, you go straight for the course that you applied for. So I want to be a doctor, I'm in medical school, I just finished my Bachelor of Medicine at the University of Amsterdam. So I applied straight for medicine, and I only took medicine classes the past 4 years. A bachelor's degree is usually 3 to 4 years depending on your course, and usually you go straight on to a master. So I know this is a little bit different in the US as well. It's common to go on to do a master's if you're going to like medical school, dentistry school, getting an MBA, but it's not really common to just do like a random master's. Versus in the Netherlands, it's pretty common to do like an international relations master's, a master's here, a master's there. But that's a little bit of a difference from what I've heard from friends who are finishing college now. They're looking more towards jobs in the US, versus here a lot of my friends are going on to do a master's. And the last thing I want to say about university in the Netherlands is you need to have, like I said before, the right level of high school in order to go to university. So the highest level, which is known as VWO. But I want to move on to the next thing that I thought was interesting. Again, this is all based on like my own experiences and me talking to friends. I obviously don't go to college in the US, so it might be a little bit different for everyone, but this is what I've heard from friends. I did go through the whole application process in the US. I did apply to a bunch of US colleges. So yeah, take everything with a grain of salt, but I really like filming these videos. The tuition in America is definitely different than in the Netherlands. Universities are private and they can often cost up to 50 to 60,000 US dollars a year, which is a lot. Plus it can be even more if you're including room and board, which is often included and sometimes even required in your first year. There are opportunities for getting loans, financial aid if your family doesn't earn enough money and can't support you for college. You can get scholarships based on merit, so your academic achievements, or based on athletics. This is definitely something common that I saw in my high school in the US. People were very focused on athletics and very focused on trying to get an athletics scholarship. In the Netherlands, the system is completely different. We have public universities. Our universities cost around 2,000 euros a year for European students and around 10,000 euros a year for international students. There's not a lot of scholarships. And especially for international students, it's not really common to be able to get funded by the Dutch government. However, there is a loan system for Dutch students. So while you're studying, you can get money from the government every year to pay for your studies, to pay for your housing, stuff like that. But you do have to pay it back at the end of your studies. You have a really long time to do that. But there is a very well done loan system in the Netherlands. So basically anybody who does want to go to college can go to college. The next thing I want to talk about is housing. So I actually visited a friend of mine at Georgetown University 2 winters ago, and it was so great to actually like sleep in her dorm, see the whole dorm experience. I was fascinated by this. So in America, you have a lot of dorm rooms. Usually it's required for your first year, and then afterwards you can choose, or you can live off campus or live in a sorority house. I'll get into kind of the differences that I've heard about. So some pros that I've heard about dorm rooms are there is an immediate connection with people around you. Often you can like pick your roommate before you even get to college. So if you know someone going to that college, or if you connect on Facebook, you can kind of like know that you're gonna match with someone that you like. You know, you're in a big hall, everyone's there. It's a lot easier to like get to know people and meet people. Also, there's no monthly costs if you have paid your tuition. That's the room and board part of your tuition that's already been paid at the beginning of the semester. So there's not worrying about like monthly bills. And it's very close to class. Usually dorm rooms range from like a few minutes to like a 15-minute walk, but usually not very far away unless you're in some bigger cities. But if you're on a campus, it's usually pretty nice and quick to get to class. There's also some cons that I've heard from friends. If you have a bad roommate, it can be really hard to change and you're usually kind of stuck together for the first year. There's a lot less privacy, especially if you're in a first year dorm room. It's usually 2 twin beds opposite of each other. So, you know, you're really stuck together in the beginning. You know, obviously this costs a lot more, and sometimes people don't like that they have meal plans included. Often in your first year, you have to take like meal points, which means you have to eat in campus dining halls. And some people can see that as annoying. Some people love it because they don't have to like cook or decide what they want to eat. Like they can just go to a dining hall, but some people hate that they have to like finish those meal points. So yeah, first year in the US is usually in a dorm, and then later on people move to either apartments off campus with friends, apartments alone, fraternity houses, sorority houses, or you can choose to be in a dorm all 4 years at some universities. So in the Netherlands, it's very different. School and your living space is absolutely separate. You have to find a living space on your own, which can be very daunting, especially in a big city like Amsterdam. So a lot of students actually do still live at home in the first year, either to save money or because they can't find something that they like. The pro is that you get to like pick your roommates, pick people that you want to live with. You become a lot more independent. You have to cook yourself. You know, there's no meal plan or dining hall, so you have to do all of that yourself. You interact more with your city. You're usually not right next door to your university, so you see a lot more of your city, and you get to choose how you spend your money on room and food. So there are some people who think it's worth it to have a high amount of rent to be in the center of the city. There's other people who would like to save on rent and have a bigger room outside of the city, so you really get to decide that all on your own. There's definitely some cons as well. It can be very expensive in the Netherlands for students. It can cost up to 1,000 euros a month for just a room, so not even an apartment for yourself, which is crazy. It can be really hard to find a room, especially in big cities in the Netherlands, which, you know, sucks, especially if you want to move out. And the commute can be annoying, you know, sometimes you're not right next to your chosen university. So the next thing I want to talk about is a learning approach. Again, all from what I've heard from friends. This might be completely different, but let me know your experiences down below if you go to university or college in either of these places. I'm super curious to hear your thoughts. I am sorry if the setup slightly changed. My camera died in the middle of filming this, so I had to like reset everything up. Okay, let's pick up where we left off. So learning approach, this is also what I've heard from friends, so don't know if all of this is true. I'm sure everybody studies like differently, but this is just what I've heard about like studying or the way people go about learning. So the US, what I've noticed is a lot more grades focused. I had this a lot in high school too. So really focus on getting that A, and like your GPA really matters. University professors will even tell you like, oh, your future employers are going to be looking at your GPA. So there's definitely like importance on your grades. Teachers will often also hand out homework assignments with like readings or questions that you need to answer, stuff like that. And there's usually a midterm and a final. A midterm is usually at the end of your fall semester and a final at the end of your spring semester. So a lot of the like crazy study weeks are right before midterm week and final week. But also during the class you can have other big assignments and tests, and people are usually working pretty hard around the clock to finish those. And like I said before, you know, it is really focused on getting that good grade. People really want to achieve a high mark. So in the Netherlands, this is definitely different. Usually per class or module that you're taking, you'll have 1 or 2 exams. Like for me, if I have an 8-week course, I'll have an exam at week 4, like a midterm, and an exam at week 8. So you definitely have a lot of exams per year, not just one big midterm and one big final. During the course, however, we won't really have any tests other than that. And we also won't have homework assignments. Usually you'll get like a list of required reading, or you get a textbook that you need to know for that exam, and you get to study on your own. So people are a lot more finding out like ways that work for them for studying. There are people who will make flashcards, there are people who will just read the book, there are people who will buy summaries that other students have made, stuff like that. So it's definitely a lot more about like figuring out what way works for you to learn, and not really focused on like finishing homework assignments and stuff like that. There will never really be homework assignments at university here, or at least in my experience. And people definitely aren't really focused on high grades. Sure, there are people who are, but university professors here will even tell you like, oh, no one's gonna look at your grades when you work. And the Netherlands is based on a 0 to 10 system. A 6 is a pass, and usually people will think a 6 is fine. 10s and 9s are the exception, and people aren't really studying to get that 9 or 10. They're studying to get that 6. So the next thing I want to talk about is teaching approach. I am really sad I never got to a US college lecture, but this is just what I've heard from some friends. So in my experience, what I've heard from people is that the US teaching is more like hands-on. They're really more like explaining to you. There's a lot of like 101 classes that you have to take in the beginning, and there's a variety of different types of classes. So if you're taking a bio 101 class your freshman year, you might be in a big auditorium with a lot of people, versus if you're taking a really specific class. Like a friend of mine at Georgetown, she was taking like a Russian history class. There were like 10 people in our class, so that can be a lot smaller, and you'll have more like tutorials or just smaller group lessons. I feel like the US teaching approach, also what I noticed in high school, is a lot more about like repeating things over and over again to really get like key concepts. And like I said before, during the class you have more presentations, you have papers, you have tests, you have a multitude of ways to like show your knowledge and test your knowledge, which is definitely different than here. I don't think I've written a paper except for my thesis my whole bachelor degree. Then there's another thing about professors and how they do. So I have heard 2 things. Either professors are really, really determined to get the class to like them, and they really want to do a good job. Also because there are like websites like Rate My Professors where people can actually like rate your professors, so teachers really want to do well. Or you have professors who have tenure, which if you don't know what tenure is, it's basically if you've been working at a university for a very long time, you get tenure and you basically can't get fired. So they don't really care anymore about giving great lessons. So I guess that kind of changes from professor to professor and university to university. But the other thing that I've heard from a friend of mine is that attendance is recorded, which is not the case in the Netherlands. So in the US, your attendance matters, and your attendances can even be part of your grade. So in the Netherlands, like I said before, it's really different the way people teach. You basically have, most of your lessons will be large lectures with about 300 plus students depending on your class size. You'll have a few small specialized tutorials. Like for me, if I'm learning hands-on patient skills, I'll have a small tutorial on that, but that's very uncommon. Not even once a week do you have a small tutorial. There are no tests, like I said before. You just have your like little exam in the midterm and your end exam, and those usually make your final grade. This also changes a little bit from class to class. I know that some majors in the Netherlands do have papers, but at least for medical school, like this is the way we're just tested twice per course, and we have like 6 courses per year usually, so about 12 exams a year. It's really based on not just teachers teaching you concepts, but really on students asking questions. We have a lot of lectures where a teacher will walk around with a mic, or a professor will walk around with a microphone and really ask students to answer questions. So it's not really based on repeating general concepts. General concepts are usually things that you have to learn at home by yourself with your textbook, and the lessons are really used to form like a deeper understanding of the material. There are a few required classes, and attendance really is mandatory, or it could have an effect on getting your degree. However, most like big lectures are not required, and they are usually even recorded online, so you can watch them at home if you would like to do that. And like I said before, attendance can be very low, especially I remember my Friday morning like 8:45 classes. There would be no one in those lectures. There'd be like 20 people for like a 350 people class, so that's kind of crazy. But like I said, attendance really is rarely recorded unless for those like small tutorials. So the last thing I want to talk about is not necessarily travel related, but I thought this was kind of interesting, so I thought I would include this in here. I could definitely go like more in depth into this in another America versus the Netherlands video. So the US is obviously a lot bigger than the Netherlands, and a lot of times people will go to college not necessarily close to home. So I have friends who are from the East Coast but ended up going to college in California or in Texas or Washington DC, stuff like that. So it really is far away. So you're meeting a whole new group of people, and usually your high school friends are spread out all across the country. So that means that you'll probably only be heading home for bigger vacations like spring break, Thanksgiving break, Christmas, stuff like that. So you're not really traveling back and forth between home and your college that often. And it can be hard to travel to big cities. You know, if you're in a college like somewhere in the Midwest, you're not really just going on like a trip with friends to New York City or something like that. Versus the Netherlands, travel is definitely different when you're in college. Obviously the Netherlands is a lot smaller. It's located in Europe, close to a bunch of other European countries, so it is really common with your college friends to go away for a weekend, to Dublin, to Berlin, all that stuff. I've done all that with friends. I've gone a weekend to Budapest, to Berlin, to Zurich, stuff like that. So that's definitely a lot more common. A lot more people do that, and I think it's a part of your college experience as well. Some fraternities and sororities will even organize special like trips. Usually most of them do, like once a year, or they'll go on ski vacation somewhere. So travel is definitely a part of the college experience here, which I think is definitely different than the US. And like I said before, there's obviously like, because you're so close, even if you go to a really big city far away from your small hometown in the Netherlands, the longest it'll take you by train is still like 3 hours. So people travel home to their parents or to see their like hometown friends, their high school friends, a lot, usually just for a weekend. So that is definitely something that's a lot more common here. So I think people see their families and their high school friends a lot more than people who go to college in the US far away from home. Oh yeah, and a semester abroad is really popular, I think, in both places, and I think it kind of like switches what location is popular. I think for a lot of US students, a semester abroad in Europe is really popular. I've heard so many people do a semester abroad in Paris, in Spain, in Barcelona, stuff like that. So they really love coming to Europe, versus the people who do a semester abroad, if their study allows it in the Netherlands, love to go to the US. I've heard a lot of people wanting to go to the US or to Asia, a lot of like Hong Kong, Singapore. So it's really interesting to see those differences as well. People don't necessarily do a semester abroad in Berlin if they're from Amsterdam, because it's not that far and they've probably been before. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this America versus the Netherlands video. I thought it was really fun to film. I thought it was fun to do some research. Sorry if I was looking at my notes a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that what I said was at least somewhat factually accurate, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe, comment what you thought down below. I'll be sure to not wait another 9 months to make another one of these, and I hope to see you guys back on my channel again soon. Bye!